Welcome to Queer Conversations, brought to you by Lesbians on the Loose. My name is Silke Bader and I'm here today with Zali Offord, a previous Australian alpine skier. Welcome, Zali.
Hey, how are you?
We're here today to talk a little bit about your experience in the skiing environment, I guess, for you to being gay, come out. We'd like to find out a little bit more. What was your journey?
Yeah, cool. Well, I had an interesting one. I started sport at a young age of 13. So, I mean, I wasn't quite gay or had any intention of what was going on then, but coming through the sport and reaching a high level, you kind of get to this certain age where you start to wonder and think these things. And I did experience a few interesting moments in my life where I kind of suppose hid a little bit within myself, within sport, because I didn't want to feel like that type of person at that time. But now that I'm out and proud in the sport, I wish that I did it a lot earlier, I suppose.
Why alpine skiing?
Interesting. It kind of just happened. I went down the snow with my family each weekend, and then I kind of saw a few ski races and knew a kid at school at the time, and he was a ski racer, so I kind of wanted to chase him, I suppose. And then it just was projectile from there. It just went really fast, and I found myself in Europe for 5 months a year, every year, all up until when I finished competing when I was 19.
So since the age of 13, you started traveling overseas, experienced different cultures on the different snowfields from Austria, Germany, France, North
Italian
America.
Alps, North America.
Incredible.
Scandinavia. Kind of have traveled so many places at such a young age, so I was really lucky.
And at that time, you mentioned earlier that you didn't want to be that person.
Probably the conversation came up with my close friends at the time when I was probably 17, around that age, which I think is very early compared to some people's, a lot of people's coming out story, I suppose. But that was kind of a conversation starter. And then by 18, I was already, by 18, I was kind of open with my close friends, but still not open to my family. Yes. 18, I was traveling overseas, and I had come out to my family over message, which is not very respectful in ways, I suppose. I sent a message to my whole family on my dad's birthday, which I didn't realise, happy birthday, Dad. But I think by that point, I'd kind of was suppressing the coming out to my family a lot earlier, where I was still competing and I was experiencing moments where, coaches had known because they'd seen me in that environment, but my parents weren't living in that environment, so they weren't really sure. And they'd seen me around with girls and they knew, and they kind of thought that maybe it was their right to kind of mention those comments to my parents.
That is difficult.
Which was really difficult as an 18-year-old, trying to compete to be the best, and then you've got that in your mind as well. So that was...
Your parents have been very supportive in regards of your skiing career.
Yep.
I believe that you chose to become a professional skier over education, I guess.
Yeah.
And they actually did support that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. My mum and dad did support me. When I was 16, 17, I was studying through distance education. So I was able to do all my schoolwork being sent to me because I was spending so much time traveling. It worked well. I preferred to be on the mountain skiing and then working in ski shops at night, learning how to service and look after skis, which is what my career is now. And mum and dad supported that. They said, okay, well, if you are I think I was a bit reluctant at the time, but in the end they said, all right, if you're working in a ski shop and you're making money and you're doing that, that's okay. You know, I wasn't forced to finish off school, like complete my year 11 and 12. Yeah. I left by the end of year 10 and I was skiing and competing on the national team and working in ski shops.
This is incredible. I mean, to see that support your parents gave you there, I'm a little surprised that you were hesitant to talk to them about coming out, being gay.
Yeah.
Was that more because you were physically away from them and traveling a lot, or was there was it worse to come out to your parents versus coming out to your mates on the ski fields and your...
Yeah, I think definitely not. Well, I saw them often, but, you know, it was for a weekend and I wouldn't kind of bring up the conversation, I suppose, in a weekend. And then I'd find myself overseas for 6 months. So I think my friends, the conversation came out because they were around me a lot and they saw it. And then it got to the moment where I told my sister and her now husband, and they were like, yeah, that's fine, of course. We're like, no surprise. And they were like, just tell mum and dad, they'll be fine. And I mean, mum and dad, I think they were like any parent, a bit, whoa, and taken back at the time. Yeah. But I mean, they were supportive the whole way.
Yeah, and they sound like great people.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. In regards of having a positive role model in the skiing culture, I can only think of Belle Brockhoff, who is openly gay.
Yeah.
Are there any other role models there were for you that helped you coming out or that made you feel comfortable?
Yeah, that's interesting because I remember even being a young ski racer and kind of going, I can't even look up to any World Cup skiers that are openly gay. And still even now, I wouldn't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some girls competing on the circuit that are, but there's definitely not many that are openly out. And like, apart from Belle Brockhoff, that's pretty cool that she's an Aussie and we were both on the same team technically, like when I was skiing on national team.
So I find there is a lot of work to do in regards to visibility in sport. Homophobia in sport is or has been high on the agenda in our community, and a lot of work has been done in all areas of sport, being in cricket, soccer. We have very high profile Michelle Heyman, who is out and proud and does her bit to represent a positive image to the young ones coming up. So I find this really empowering speaking to you about, because you're right, I can't think of anyone else than Belle Brockhoff. Talking about you, this is really encouraging for other young women who are, you know, looking for a role model and to help them in their journey.
Yeah.
Tell me also a little bit, what are you doing now?
So right now I am working as the ski technician for the Australian Paralympic ski team. So I travel with 11 athletes and we compete on World Cups and World Championships and heading towards the Paralympic Games in March 2022. So I'm the ski technician, so I service all of their equipment, and then I'm also an assistant coach. So I'm working with them on the hill. And I'm working with blind skiers, boys in wheelchairs, missing limbs, and and all sorts of categories within Paralympic sport and Paralympic skiing, and it's been incredible.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
So are you one of the very few manual ski technicians in Australia?
Yeah, it's a bit of a dying career, I suppose. I mean, machinery is getting more and more technologies are coming out, and machinery is making ski tuning and servicing snowboards and skis a lot easier.
Yeah.
I'm still, and I've learnt from a young age how to tune by hand. So I'm using files and sharpening everything by hand. And that's mainly what I'm doing on the circuit with my athletes. And they all prefer their skis at, you know, different sharpness at the tip, different here, different there. So I'm kind of adjusting my styles every night 11 times for each athlete. So it's pretty technical, but I think just like that, those thoughts of, oh, maybe I like girls, they just kind of naturally happened. Like I just kind of would find myself going out with my friends and they would all kind of be, oh, look at this guy, look at that. And I was just kind of always sitting there like, And then they kind of brought that question up to me and then I was like, yeah. And I used to defend myself a little bit when I was younger and say, oh, well, I've just never fallen in love, so I don't know who it's going to be. Who knows? But I think in the back of my mind, it was always naturally definitely attracted to women. And I think that they're special and that's kind of what I felt. And then it just came really supportive friends asking the question and probably just giving me the confidence of saying it to them. And then that kind of has now become that I'm open and happy and kind of want anyone in the sporting industry that I'm working in to know and feel as though they can look up to me, I suppose, because like we spoke about earlier, it's not common. And I can't think of many people that I could have looked up to, I suppose.
Yeah. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please follow us or check out our website on LOTL.com.